All right, let's talk about silver. For ages, it's been this go-to asset, right? A real store of value. But let's be real, owning the actual physical stuff, it can be a massive pain. So today we're diving into a modern fix that gives you all the good stuff without the headaches, the Tata Silver ETF. So let me just ask you this. Do you love the idea of investing in silver, but absolutely dread the thought of, actually having to store it somewhere safe? Worrying about insurance, making sure it's pure? If you're not in your head right now, you're going to want to stick around because we're about to unpack a solution designed to fix exactly that. Okay, here's the game plan for today. First, we'll look at this whole new way of owning silver. Then we're going to demystify ETFs, what we're calling the digital vault. After that, we'll put the Tata Silver ETF, or TASILV, right under the spotlight. We'll even take a peek inside its vault to see what's really there. And to wrap it all up, we'll cover the investment outlook from our source material. All right, first things first, let's dig into this new way to own silver. This is a pretty big shift in thinking, It's all about moving silver from being this heavy physical thing you have to deal with to a super simple digital asset you can trade in a click. I mean, just think about it for a second. When you buy physical silver, like bars or coins, you're suddenly in charge of everything. Is this really 99.9% pure like the guy said? Where on earth am I going to keep this where it won't get stolen? It's a legitimate headache. And that, right there, is the perfect setup for the financial innovation we're talking about today. So what is the answer to all those physical hassles? Well, it's something called an exchange-traded fund, or ETF. We're kind of calling it the digital vault for this explainer. Let's break down exactly how this thing works. Okay, so what is an ETF? In the simplest terms, it's a fund you can buy and sell on a stock exchange, just like you would a stock in a company. But here's the cool part. With a silver ETF, each unit you buy represents a tiny piece of real, physical silver that's being held for you in a super secure vault. It's kind of like having a digital receipt or a claim check for silver that you own, but you never have to touch or worry about storing. What's really fascinating here is just how new this whole thing is for the Indian market. It was just back in late 2023 that SEBI, the market regulator, even gave the green light for these. And then, wow, things moved fast. By January 2024, the Tata Silver ETF was open for business, and it started trading just a week later. We're talking about a very, very recent development. And of course, you might be wondering, is this legit? Well, to make sure everything is rock solid, SEBI has laid down some pretty strict rules. The big one, at least 95% of the fund has to be backed by actual physical silver. And not just any silver. It has to be 99.9% pure. This isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It's your guarantee that your investment is tied to a real, high-quality commodity. Okay, so now that we've got the general idea down, let's really zoom in on our main example. TATSILV, the Tata Silver ETF. So remember that 95% minimum rule from SEBI we just mentioned? Well, check this out. This is a really key point. The Tata Silver ETF doesn't just scrape by and meet the minimum. Nope, according to the data, it consistently does more, typically holding somewhere between 97 and 98% of its assets in physical silver. That shows they're really going above and beyond the standard. And that brings us to, honestly, my favorite part. Let's pull back the curtain and actually look inside the vault. What does a fund like this really own? And here we go, a snapshot of the fund's portfolio. Now, the source material says late 2025, which, is probably just a typo for late 2024, but what's really important is the allocation. Look at that. It's crystal clear. A whopping 98% of the fund is pure physical silver. That tiny sliver that's left over, that's just a bit of cash to keep things running smoothly. This really confirms the fund's entire purpose, to track the price of silver, plain and simple. So, what does that 98% actually look like in cold, hard cash? Take a look at this number. We're talking over 2,827 crore rupees. That is an absolutely staggering amount of value, all sitting in physical silver bars, backing up every single unit that investors own. The scale of this operation is just wow. But, huge numbers like that can feel a bit abstract. So let's make it real. What does that actually weigh? That massive amount of money translates to roughly 290,000 kilograms of silver. That's 290 metric tons of the pure stuff, all locked away in high-security vaults. It really hammers home the physical part of a physically backed ETF, doesn't it? All right, so for our final section, let's talk about the investment outlook. Now, this is really important. What we're about to cover is the perspective from our source material, which comes from a group called SmartInvestors. We're just here to explain their viewpoint, not to endorse it. So the entire foundation of their argument is captured perfectly in this quote. They're basically saying that silver is a two-for-one deal. It's not just a precious metal, it's also a critical industrial metal. I mean, it's in everything from solar panels to all our electronics. So their bet is that the huge, growing demand from industry is going to push the price up, and up sharply. So, based on that outlook, what do they suggest doing? Well, according to the source, their strategy is pretty straightforward. It's a two-step play. First, buy the asset when prices dip. And second, just hold on to it for the long haul, banking on that industrial demand to eventually drive the value way up. And all of this brings us right to our final big question. With this new, super accessible way to invest that just strips away all the old hassles of ownership, could digital silver be the new gold for your portfolio? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this breakdown.